The gunshot echoed through the valley as Quentin Wright rode hard toward home, his heart hammering against his ribs. 5 days away from the ranch was four too many, especially with Jane's time so near. The letter had reached him in Silver Creek just yesterday. Trouble at home. Come quick, and he hadn't stopped riding since, pushing his stallion to its limits across the rugged Arizona territory. It was 1883, and the West was changing, but some parts remained wild as ever. Quentin knew this land like he knew the calluses on his hands, every ridge and ravine between Silver Creek and the modest ranch he'd built with Jane. 6 years they'd been married now. 6 years of hard work, laughter, tears, and love deeper than any canyon the Colorado had carved. The second gunshot came closer, and Quentin ducked instinctively, urging his horse around a bend in the trail. Rustlers had been hitting ranches all through the territory, and the thought of Jane alone with just old Hank and young Lily made his blood run cold. Their daughter was only 5, smart as a whip, but still just a child. And Jane, beautiful stubborn Jane, 8 months along with their second. The ranch came into view as he crested the final hill, a modest spread with the small 2-story house he'd built with his own hands, the barn, corral, and outbuildings scattered around it. Something was wrong. The front door stood open, swinging in the breeze. Jane. He called, dismounting before his horse had fully stopped, nearly falling in his haste. Jane, Lily. The house was quiet, too quiet. Quentin drew his Colt, moving carefully through the front room, eyes scanning for any sign of what had happened. A chair overturned. Jane's sewing basket spilled across the floor, but no blood, thank God, no blood. A small sound from upstairs stopped him cold, a whimper like a child trying not to cry. Lily, he called, softer now, moving toward the stairs. Lily girl, it's Papa. The bedroom door creaked open at his touch, and there she was, his daughter, her dark braids askew, tear tracks on her dusty cheeks, and her small hands pressed firmly against her belly. Papa, she whispered, relief flooding her face. Papa, you came back. He holstered his gun and knelt beside her, checking for injuries. Where's Mama, sweetheart? Where's Mr. Hank? Lily's lower lip trembled. She looked down at her hands, still pressed against her middle, and said something that would haunt Quentin forever. Mama's in there somewhere. She said I had to keep her safe until you came home. Quentin felt the world tilt beneath him. What happened, Lily? Tell me everything. The story came out in bits and pieces. 3 men had come while Hank was checking the north fence. They'd wanted horses, money. Jane had hidden Lily upstairs but confronted the men herself. There'd been a struggle. One of the men had struck Jane and she'd fallen. They took her away in a wagon, Papa, Lily said, her voice small. Mama was so still. She didn't wake up when they carried her. But before, when the bad men came, she gave me this. Lily pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. She said if anything happened, I had to keep it safe in my tummy until you came home. The note was in Jane's hurried handwriting. McAllister gang. If trouble comes, heading to Doc Jensen in Pleasant Valley. Lily knows where. I love you both. J. Quentin pulled his daughter close, his mind racing. The McAllister gang was notorious in the territory, brutal, merciless men who'd murdered and robbed their way across 3 states. If they had Jane. Lily, he asked gently, what did Mama mean about Pleasant Valley? Do you know where that is? Lily nodded solemnly. Mama has a special map for emergencies. She showed me the secret place. She led him to the kitchen, to the loose floorboard beneath the dry sink where Jane kept emergency supplies, a bit of money, medicine, and a carefully drawn map. Pleasant Valley was nearly 40 miles east, a small settlement where Jane's friend from back east, Dr. Josephine Jensen, had established a practice after the war. Mr. Hank didn't come back, Lily said quietly as Quentin studied the map. I waited and waited. Quentin's jaw tightened. Poor old Hank likely dead somewhere on the property. He'd have to find him, bury him properly, but not now. Jane needed him now. We're going to find Mama, he told Lily, meeting her eyes Jane's eyes, big and brown in her small face. But first, I need to get you somewhere safe. Lily shook her head vigorously. No, Mama said stay together. She said you'd come and we'd be okay. Lily, I'm coming with you. Her chin jutted out stubbornly, Jane's determination in miniature. Mama needs us both. Quentin recognized the battle was lost before it began. The nearest neighbor was the Johnsons, 10 miles away, and with rustlers in the area, traveling alone might put Lily in more danger. At least with him he could protect her. All right, he conceded, but you do exactly as I say when I say it. No arguments, this is dangerous. Within the hour they were ready, supplies packed, horses saddled. Quentin put Lily in front of him on the saddle, unwilling to let her ride alone. As they left the ranch, he glanced back at the home he'd built, the life he and Jane had created together, and silently promised to bring her back. They rode hard through the afternoon, stopping only when necessary for the horses. Lily remained quiet, occasionally touching her belly where she'd kept Jane's note hidden, as if some essence of her mother remained there. By nightfall, they'd covered nearly half the distance to Pleasant Valley. We'll camp here tonight, Quentin said, helping Lily down by a small creek sheltered by cottonwoods. First light, we'll keep moving. As he built a small, nearly smokeless fire and prepared a simple meal, Quentin's mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Jane was strong but 8 months pregnant and injured. The McAllister gang wasn't known for mercy. Papa, Lily's voice pulled him from his dark thoughts. Will Mama and the baby be okay? Quentin pulled her close. Your Mama is the strongest woman I've ever known. If anyone can make it through this, it's her. How did you meet Mama? Lily asked, settling against his side with her tin cup of beans. Quentin smiled despite everything. That's quite a story. I wasn't always a rancher, you know. What were you? I was lost, he said honestly. After the war, the big war that ended before you were born, I didn't know where to go or what to do. I drifted, took odd jobs. I was angry at the world. Why were you angry? Quentin stared into the fire. Sometimes people see terrible things and it changes them. I'd seen too many terrible things. And then you met Mama, Lily prompted. And then I met your Mama, he agreed, the memory warming him even now. I was working as a trail guide, bringing settlers west. Your Mama was teaching school in a little Kansas town, and her brother hired me to bring them to Arizona territory. James was sick consumption, and the doctors said the dry air might help. Quentin remembered that first sight of Jane Galloway, 22 years old, standing on the porch of the little schoolhouse with books in her arms and determination in her eyes. She'd argued with him about the route, questioned his qualifications, and generally made herself the most infuriating woman he'd ever encountered. Your Mama thought I was the most disagreeable man she'd ever met, he told Lily, who giggled. She told me so right to my face. But you loved her. Not right away, he admitted. First, I respected her. She was fearless. When bandits attacked our wagon train, most people hid. Your Mama grabbed a shotgun and stood her ground. She saved her brother's life that day. The journey had been long and arduous, dust storms, river crossings, illness and accidents. Somewhere between Kansas and Arizona, respect had turned to admiration, and admiration to love. By the time they reached their destination, Quentin couldn't imagine life without Jane's sharp wit and gentle heart. James died 3 months after we arrived, Quentin said softly. Your Mama was all alone then. I offered to guide her back east, but she refused, said Arizona was home now. He smiled at the memory. We were married that spring, built the ranch together, and then, not too long after we had you, Lily yawned, her eyes growing heavy. And now the new baby. And now the new baby, he agreed, swallowing the fear that threatened to choke him. Time for sleep, Lily girl. We've got an early start tomorrow. As Lily drifted off beside him, Quentin kept watch, his hand never far from his gun. Jane was out there somewhere, possibly hurt, possibly. No, he wouldn't think that way. Jane was alive, she had to be. The night passed slowly. Every sound in the darkness had Quentin on alert, coyotes calling, the rustle of nocturnal creatures, the occasional distant lowing of cattle. By dawn, he was exhausted but determined, rousing Lily gently and breaking camp with efficiency born of years on the trail. "How much farther, Papa?" Lily asked as they mounted up. "We should reach Pleasant Valley by midday," he answered, checking his pocket watch. "If we push hard." They rode steadily through the morning, the terrain growing more rugged as they approached the foothills. Quentin kept a watchful eye for signs of pursuit or danger, but the trail remained quiet. Too quiet, perhaps. Near noon, they crested a rise, and the small settlement of Pleasant Valley came into view, a cluster of buildings along a central street, surrounded by scattered homesteads. Quentin scanned the area carefully before approaching. Jane's map had marked Dr. Jensen's clinic at the eastern edge of town. "Remember what I told you," he said quietly to Lily as they rode in. "Stay close. Don't talk to strangers. If I say run, you run." The town seemed peaceful enough, with the usual activity of a frontier settlement, shopkeepers sweeping porches, freight wagons unloading supplies, a few horses tied at the saloon. But Quentin knew appearances could be deceiving. If the McAllister gang had brought Jane here, they might still be close. The clinic was a neat white building with green shutters, a small sign identifying it as J. Jensen, M.D. Quentin tied their horse at the hitching post, lifted Lily down, and approached cautiously, his hand near his holster. The door opened before they reached it. A woman in her 30s with steel-rimmed spectacles and her brown hair pulled back in a severe bun regarded them carefully. "You must be right," she said. "Jane said you'd come." Relief nearly buckled Quentin's knees. "Jane's here. She's alive, Doctor." Jensen nodded once. "Inside, quickly now." Lily darted forward the moment they entered, running to the bed where Jane lay pale and still. "Mama!" Jane's eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on her daughter. "Lily," she whispered. "My brave girl." Her gaze shifted to Quentin, and tears filled her eyes. "You came." Quentin was beside her in 2 strides, carefully gathering her hand in his. "Always," he said roughly. "Are you is the baby? The baby is stable for now," Dr. Jensen interjected. "But Jane's condition is precarious. She has a severe concussion, 2 broken ribs, and has lost a concerning amount of blood. The trauma has triggered early labor, which I've managed to slow with medication but not stop entirely." Quentin felt ice in his veins. "What does that mean?" "It means," Jane said weakly, "that our child is determined to enter this world ahead of schedule." Dr. Jensen's expression remained grave. "The baby is nearly a month early. That, combined with Jane's injuries and the traumatic journey here." "I've done what I can, Mr. Wright, but you should prepare yourself." "No," Quentin said firmly, squeezing Jane's hand. "No, I've seen Jane survive things that would kill most men. She's going to be fine. They both are." Jane attempted a smile, though it clearly pained her. "Always so certain, Quentin Wright. Tell me what happened," he urged. "Lily said the McAllister gang." Jane nodded slightly, wincing at the movement. 3 of them. They came for horses, but when they saw I was alone except for Lily, their intentions changed." A shadow crossed her face. "I fought back. One of them, the youngest, he seemed reluctant. When their leader struck me, this younger one argued with him. After I fell, I heard them fighting. The next thing I knew, I was in a wagon, and the young one, Quinn, they called him, was driving, telling me he was taking me to a doctor. A McAllister brought you here. Quentin could hardly believe it. He left her on my doorstep 2 nights ago, Dr. Jensen confirmed. Pounded on the door and ran. I've been caring for her since, wondering if anyone would come looking for her. Quentin pressed his forehead to Jane's hand, overwhelmed with gratitude that she was alive, mixed with cold fear for what might still happen. What about Hank? Lily said he never returned. Pain flashed across Jane's face. The McAllisters mentioned killing an old man by the north fence. I'm so sorry, Quentin. Hank was a good man. He was, Quentin agreed, his throat tight. Hank had been with him since the beginning, a grizzled former cavalryman who'd taught Quentin everything he knew about ranching. Another debt to settle with the McAllisters. Papa, Lily tugged at his sleeve. Is Mama coming home now? Dr. Jensen answered before Quentin could. Not yet, little one. Your mama needs rest and care, and the baby might be coming soon. Too soon, Jane whispered, her hand moving to her swollen belly. Josephine says the baby's too small. We've known each other since finishing school in Boston, Dr. Jensen explained to Quentin. When I wrote that I was establishing a practice out west, Jane encouraged me, said the frontier needed more women doctors. She adjusted Jane's blankets with gentle hands. I never expected her to need my services under these circumstances. A commotion outside drew Quentin's attention. He moved to the window, peering carefully through the curtains. 3 riders had entered the town, moving slowly down the main street, eyes scanning buildings. Even at a distance, Quentin recognized the distinctive hat of Luther McAllister, the gang's leader. They're here, he said grimly, moving back from the window. Dr. Jensen's face hardened. How many? 3 that I can see, probably looking to finish what they started. The sheriff is 3 days' ride from here, collecting taxes in the county seat, Dr. Jensen finished. We have a part-time deputy, but he's hardly more than a boy. Quentin checked his ammunition. Get Jane and Lily to the back room. Lock the door. If I don't stop them here, no. Jane struggled to sit up, her face contorted with pain. You can't face them alone, Quentin. I'm not leaving you defenseless, he insisted. There's another way, Dr. Jensen said quietly. The young one who brought Jane here, Quinn McAllister. He's Luther's nephew. Word in town is they've had a falling out. Luther's been looking for him, threatening anyone who might be harboring him. Where is he now? My barn, Dr. Jensen admitted. He asked for sanctuary, said he was done with his uncle's ways. Quentin's hand tightened on his gun. And you believed him? He saved Jane's life, Dr. Jensen replied evenly. And mine once before. The McAllisters burned my first clinic because I treated an Apache child. Quinn warned me in time to escape with my patient. A cry from Jane interrupted them. She clutched her belly, face pale with pain. The baby, she gasped. Something's wrong. Dr. Jensen was at her side immediately, checking her pulse, feeling her abdomen with practiced hands. The labor's progressing faster now. The trauma, the stress, it's too much. Can you stop it? Quentin asked desperately. Dr. Jensen shook her head. This baby is coming, ready or not. And with Jane's injuries, Mr. Wright, I need to be honest with you. This delivery will be dangerous for both mother and child. The sound of horses outside grew louder. Voices called for the McAllister trader and the woman. Time was running out. Quentin made his decision. Get what you need for the birth. I'll handle McAllister. Papa, Lily's voice trembled. Don't go. He knelt beside his daughter. I have to protect you and Mama and the baby. I'll be back soon. Promise? I promise. He kissed her forehead, then Jane's lips, lingering for a moment. Hold on, he whispered. Both of you. Jane's fingers brushed his cheek. Be careful, our family needs you. Dr. Jensen led him through the kitchen to a back door. The barn is 30 yards that way. Quinn's in the loft. He has a rifle but no handgun. Quentin nodded once, then slipped outside, staying low and using the cover of garden shrubs to reach the barn unseen. Inside, dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight filtering through the slat walls. He moved silently toward the ladder to the loft. "I know you're there, right?" a young voice called. "The doc told me you were coming." Quentin froze, then straightened slowly. A man no older than 25 peered down at him from the loft, a Winchester trained steadily on his chest. "You Quinn McAllister?" Quentin asked evenly. "What's left of him?" The young man's face was lean and weathered, with a healing cut across one cheek. "You here to kill me for what happened to your wife?" "I'm here because your uncle and his friends are in town, looking to finish the job." Quinn's grip on the rifle tightened. "How many?" "3 that I saw." A bitter smile crossed Quinn's face. "Luther, Deke, and Simmons, the holy trinity of bastards. You saved my wife's life," Quentin said. "Why?" Quinn was silent for a long moment. "Because I've watched Luther destroy everything he touches for too long. Because your wife fought like hell to protect your little girl, and it reminded me of my mother trying to protect me from Luther when I was a boy." His eyes hardened. "And because what they were planning to do to her after wasn't something I could stomach anymore." Quentin studied him, measuring the truth in his words. "Your uncle's not going to stop. He'll kill you and everyone who helped you. I know." Quinn climbed down from the loft, rifle still in hand. "That's why I've been waiting. It ends today one way or another. My wife is in labor," Quentin said bluntly. "Too early because of what your family did to her. If anything happens to her or our child, I understand," Quinn interrupted. "And I'm sorry, truly." He met Quentin's gaze steadily. "Let me help make this right." A plan formed in Quentin's mind. It was dangerous, desperate, but with Jane and the baby in peril and 3 killers closing in, options were limited. "You any good with that rifle?" Quinn's smile was cold. "Best shot in the gang. Luther taught me himself, before I knew what kind of man he was." "All right," Quentin said, making his decision. "Here's what we're going to do." 10 minutes later, Quentin walked alone into the middle of Pleasant Valley's dusty Main Street. The few townspeople still outside hurried into buildings, doors closing firmly behind them. Luther McAllister and his 2 companions sat their horses in front of the saloon, watching his approach with predatory interest. "You the husband," Luther called, a smile splitting his beard. He was a big man, with a face like cracked leather and eyes cold as a winter sky. "Come to collect what's left of your wife." Quentin stopped 30 paces away, hands deliberately away from his holstered gun. "I'm Quentin Wright. You've caused me considerable trouble, Mr. McAllister." Luther laughed, a harsh sound. "Ain't that a shame? Way I hear it, you've got something of mine, too, my no-good nephew. Hand him over and maybe I'll let you bury your woman proper." "Jane's not dead," Quentin said evenly. "No thanks to you." This seemed to surprise Luther. The men on either side of him shifted uncomfortably. One younger, with a pockmarked face, leaned in to whisper something, but Luther waved him off. "Quinn brought her to the doctor," Luther said, "which means he's nearby. Tell me where and we'll be on our way." "Can't do that." Luther's face hardened. "Then I reckon we'll burn this town down building by building until we find him, starting with that clinic." Quentin took a deliberate step forward. "You've taken enough from me already. My friend Hank, nearly my wife and unborn child. You're not taking anything else." "Big words for a man about to die," Luther sneered, his hand moving toward his gun. "Not today," Quentin replied and whistled sharply. The crack of a rifle shot split the air. Luther's hat flew from his head, a neat hole punched through the crown. Before the other men could react, a second shot kicked up dust between the horses' hooves, making them rear and neigh in panic. Next one goes through your eye, Uncle, Quinn's voice carried from the rooftop of the general store across the street. Tell Deke and Simmons to drop their guns. Luther's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful whelp, after all I did for you. All you did was teach me to kill and steal, Quinn called back. Drop the guns, now. The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Then Luther went for his revolver. Quentin drew faster, firing twice. Luther jerked in the saddle, clutching his chest, his unfired gun falling to the dirt. The man named Deke raised his hands immediately, but Simmons tried to run, spurring his horse down the street. Quinn's rifle cracked once more, and Simmons tumbled from the saddle, dead before he hit the ground. Luther McAllister slumped forward, blood spreading across his shirt. His horse sidestepped nervously as he toppled from the saddle, landing heavily in the dust. It's over, Quentin said to Deke, who had gone pale. Throw your gun down and get off that horse. As the remaining outlaw complied, Quinn descended from his perch, rifle still trained on his former companion. Town doors began to open as people cautiously emerged, murmuring at the bodies in the street. The deputy should lock him up until the sheriff returns, Quinn said, indicating Deke. He'll hang, but at least he'll get a trial, Quentin nodded, already turning back toward the clinic. Someone get this man secured, he called to the gathering townspeople. The rest of you help clean this up. Right, Quinn called after him. I'm sorry about your friend, about your wife. Quentin paused. You saved her life. That counts for something. He hesitated, then added, when this is over, we should talk. Quinn's expression was unreadable as he nodded once, then turned to help the deputy with his prisoner. Quentin hurried back to the clinic where Dr. Jensen met him at the door with a grim expression. The gunfire, it's over, he assured her. The McAllisters won't trouble anyone again. Good, she said briskly, because we have more pressing matters. Jane's labor has accelerated. The baby's coming now. Quentin's heart pounded as he followed her to the back room. Jane lay on the bed, face sheened with sweat, Lily holding her hand with solemn determination. Papa, Lily cried. Mama's hurting. Jane's eyes found his, pain and fear evident in their depths. Quentin, she gasped. The baby. He was at her side in an instant, taking her hand. I'm here. You're both going to be fine. Dr. Jensen moved efficiently around them, preparing instruments and linens. Jane's strong, she told Quentin, but this delivery will be difficult. The baby is small and breech. And with Jane's injuries. Tell me what to do, Quentin said, his voice steadier than he felt. Keep her calm. Help her breathe through the contractions. And Dr. Jensen's professional demeanor slipped momentarily, revealing concern. Pray if you're so inclined. The next hours were the longest of Quentin's life. Jane fought valiantly through the pain, her strength astounding even as her body weakened. Dr. Jensen worked with quiet intensity, her skilled hands doing everything possible to ease the difficult birth. Lily, Quentin said gently after a particularly bad contraction left Jane gasping. Why don't you wait in the kitchen? Mrs. Peterson from the general store is making tea. Lily shook her head stubbornly. Mama needs me. Jane squeezed her daughter's small hand. It's all right, sweet pea. Go help Mrs. Peterson. Mama will be fine with Papa and Dr. Jensen. After Lily reluctantly left, Jane's brave facade crumbled. If I don't survive this, she whispered to Quentin, promise me you'll don't, he interrupted fiercely. Don't you dare say goodbye to me, Jane Wright. We've been through too much together for it to end like this. The baby needs a name, she insisted, her eyes fever bright. If it's a boy, another contraction seized her, cutting off her words. Dr. Jensen moved quickly, checking Jane's progress. It's time, she announced. Jane, on the next contraction, I need you to push with everything you have. What followed was a battle, Jane fighting for her life and their child's, Quentin supporting her through each excruciating push. Dr. Jensen, working with calm, practiced movements that belied the urgency of the situation. Finally, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows through the window, a thin, reedy cry filled the room. "A girl," Dr. Jensen announced, quickly wrapping the tiny, red-faced infant in a clean cloth. Small but fierce. Jane's tears flowed freely as the doctor placed their daughter on her chest. "Look what we made, Quentin." He could barely see through his own tears. "She's perfect, just like her mama." But the moment of joy was short-lived. Jane suddenly went pale, her arms going slack around the baby. "Doctor." Jensen moved with alarming speed, taking the infant and handing her to Quentin before turning back to Jane. "She's hemorrhaging," the doctor said tersely. "Get the baby out of here." "Jane," Quentin clutched their newborn daughter, torn between staying and obeying. "Go," Dr. Jensen ordered. "Let me work." The next hours were a blur of fear and waiting. Quentin paced the kitchen with his new daughter cradled carefully in his arms, Lily watching wide-eyed from a chair. The tiny girl, impossibly small but with a surprisingly strong grip on his finger, seemed determined to live despite her early arrival. "Is Mama going to die?" Lily finally asked, the question hanging in the air like gunsmoke. Quentin knelt beside her, balancing the baby carefully. "Your mama is the strongest person I know. Dr. Jensen is doing everything she can." "Is that why you were fighting the bad men? Because they hurt Mama?" "Yes," he answered honestly, "but also to make sure they couldn't hurt anyone else." Lily considered this, then reached out to touch her sister's wispy hair. "She's so little." "She is," Quentin agreed. "But right women are strong, like you, like Mama." It was nearly dusk when Dr. Jensen finally emerged from the back room, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. Quentin stood immediately, heart in his throat. "She's stable," the doctor said before he could ask. "I've stopped the bleeding. It was close, but Jane has always been stubborn." Quentin felt his knees weaken with relief. "Can we see her?" Dr. Jensen nodded briefly. "She needs rest more than anything now." Jane looked impossibly fragile against the white sheets, her skin nearly as pale. But her eyes were open, and the smile that curved her lips at the sight of her family was genuine. "My loves," she whispered as Lily climbed carefully onto the bed beside her, and Quentin placed their newborn daughter in her arms. "All safe." "Thanks to you," Quentin said, his voice rough with emotion. "You kept Lily safe. You kept fighting." Jane gazed down at the tiny bundle against her chest. "Have we named her?" "Not yet. You were saying before Hope," Jane said softly. "Her name is Hope." She looked up at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Because she reminds us that even in the darkest times there's always hope." "Hope Wright," Quentin tested the name, finding it perfect. "Our little fighter." "What happened with the McAllisters?" Jane asked, stroking Hope's cheek with one finger. "They won't trouble us again," he assured her. "Luther and one of his men are dead, the other is in custody." He hesitated. "Quinn helped." "Without him, things might have gone very differently." Jane nodded slowly. "He was different from the others. I saw it even when they first came to the ranch." Her expression grew thoughtful. "What will happen to him now?" "I don't know," Quentin admitted. "He has no family left, from what I understand." "But he saved your life, Jane." "Ours, too, maybe." Lily, who had been listening carefully, spoke up. "Maybe he could work for us, Papa, like Mr. Hank did." Quentin and Jane exchanged a look, surprise, consideration, and something like understanding passing between them. "Maybe," Quentin said carefully. "We'll see." Dr. Jensen returned then, shooing them out with firm instructions for Jane to rest. As they left her to sleep, Quentin carrying Hope while Lily skipped ahead to help Mrs. Peterson prepare dinner, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. There would be challenges ahead. Jane's recovery would take time. The ranch needed rebuilding after the McAllisters' attack. Little Hope would need special care, and there was Quinn McAllister's uncertain future to consider. But for now, his family was safe. His wife and daughters were alive, and in the Arizona Territory of 1883, that was more than enough to be grateful for. 1 year later, the Wright Ranch looked much different than it had that fateful day when Quentin rode home to find his world shattered. The house had been expanded, with a new wing added for Dr. Jensen's regular visits. The barn was larger, the herd healthier, the fields more productive. And on the porch, Jane sat in a rocking chair, Little Hope on her lap, watching as Quentin and Quinn returned from the north pasture, Lily riding her own pony proudly between them. "Mama," Lily called, waving excitedly. "We found the strays, all of them." Jane waved back, smiling as the riders approached. Hope, now a year old and thriving despite her difficult entry into the world, clapped her hands and reached for her father as he dismounted. "There's my girls," Quentin said, sweeping Hope up and leaning down to kiss Jane. "How are you feeling today?" "Better," Jane replied, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. "Josephine says this pregnancy is progressing perfectly. No complications expected." Quinn dismounted more slowly, still awkward with the domesticity of ranch life despite a year of adaptation. "Madam," he greeted Jane respectfully, helping Lily down from her pony. "Little Miss here is becoming quite the horsewoman." "Thanks to your teaching," Jane acknowledged with a warm smile. "Will you stay for dinner, Quinn? Josephine is arriving on the afternoon stage." A flush crept up Quinn's neck at the mention of Dr. Jensen. Over the past year, as he'd helped rebuild the Wright Ranch and forge a new identity separate from his outlaw past, Quinn McAllister and Josephine Jensen had developed a cautious friendship that showed signs of deepening into something more. "If it's no trouble," he said, his former outlaw swagger replaced by genuine humility. "Family is never trouble," Jane said firmly, the same words she'd spoken when Quentin had first proposed offering Quinn a place on the ranch. As they gathered on the porch, Quentin with Hope bouncing on his knee, Jane with her hand in his, Lily chattering excitedly about her riding adventures, and Quinn listening with patient attention, Quentin caught Jane's eye and saw in it the same wonder he felt. Out of tragedy they had built something beautiful. Out of violence they had crafted peace. And from the ashes of what was lost, they had discovered something precious, a family bound not just by blood, but by choice and sacrifice and love. In the distance, a stagecoach approached, bringing Josephine to check on Jane's pregnancy and, though she wouldn't admit it, to see Quinn. Soon, the house would be filled with laughter and conversation, plans for the future and stories of the past. And at the center of it all, a little girl who had once held her belly and declared that Mama's in there somewhere, a simple child's understanding of protection that had, against all odds, helped save them all.